So thank you everyone for joining. We have two fabulous guests tonight and I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. So Noah Kieserman is here with us. He is a 2018 Michigan grad. He is currently the Connor in the Evan Hansen tour. And for those of you who joined us at the UMDC outing to the Kennedy Center, you saw him jump in the middle of the show. So we will definitely touch on that in a minute. Joining him is Matthew Kemp, who is a 2019 grad from the School of Musical Theater and Dance. Also, he is currently playing the understudy swing cover, whatever, for all three of the guys' roles in the Evan Hansen tour as well. So they are on the show together, and hopefully will be again in the near future for everyone's sake. So I'm very excited you guys are here. If you want to unmute yourself, Matthew, we can hear you.
Hi. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So welcome to both of them. Why don't one of you, Noah, why don't you start and just give us a little bit about background about yourself, how you got into musical theater, maybe if you had a first show that you remember seeing, things like that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Noah. I grew up in Olney, Maryland, and went to Michigan ultimately, but I started in musical theater because my mom was a props person at a community theater, and so I used to just kind of sleep on the tables backstage and just absorb everything, and that's my sort of like upbringing story in theater, and I just eventually fell in love with it. And my brother did it, but he became a rapper later on, so he took a hard left in terms of not so much these days actually with Hamilton, so he'd be great now. But he sort of left theater, and I took the place that he initially had in it. And I did a lot of community theater and programs growing up, and then I got into Michigan, and then I was really fortunate to get onto this tour, and it's been just nothing but a joy the entire time. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Matthew, same question.
I got my start in theater when I was 3 years old because my brother was in a production of Oklahoma, and my mom would always be there early, and I would be singing along like in the waiting room waiting for all the kids to come out of the camp. And so they saw me doing that and they were like, oh, we're putting him in. So they wrote me like 3 different lines that are not in the script of Oklahoma, and they put me in the show one night, and that was like my first ever musical, and then just did it all throughout middle school and high school, and was lucky enough to get into Michigan and then book this tour right after school. Yeah.
Fantastic. So that leads to my next question. Why Michigan? Obviously it's a fantastic program, but there's a lot of really good programs. So why did you choose Michigan? I guess would be the first one. And then do you have a favorite memory from your time there?
I know why I chose it. I chose it because when you go and audition at each of these programs, the head of the departments often give speeches to sort of like bring all the credits and stuff in. And Professor Wagner, who's a teacher there, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with him, but he's like, a legend in the musical theater department. He sort of founded it. He gave this big long speech, and within it was sort of these concepts of gratitude being woven into the curriculum in a major way, just in thank you notes and sort of, becoming a well-rounded person in this program rather than just being like a conservatory that is focused solely on making sure that your skills are everything that which is great because they do that. But I think that human element added an extra flair for me. So that was a big reason of why I picked it.
He has like this really famous quote, and I'm going to get their words wrong, but it's, you can't move forwards while looking to the side and comparing yourself to other people. And that was really big for me when he gave the speech at audition day as well. The reason that I went there is because I only got in there and one other place. So there were only 2 options, mostly because of my song selections for my auditions, which we'll never redo again. But we got it. Well, for half of my college auditions, I sang Screw Loose from the musical Crybaby, which is not the right choice, but I didn't sing it at Michigan, so I did get into Michigan, and was very fortunate to go there.
Fantastic. Any favorite memories from your time there, whether musical theater, programs, sports, anything that kind of sticks out in your mind?
I mean, go.
This is so specific, but I was lucky enough to play Flounder in The Little Mermaid, and just the costume is something that I always think of. They built me like a giant yellow backpack that was like 3 feet behind me, and they had me like, we had a whole swimming rehearsal day where we were figuring out how we were going to swim in the show on stage, and that is just one of my favorite memories because it was the best thing in the world.
The costume was beautiful.
We did like an Easter matinee, and like my first entrance, like all of these little kids were like, "Flounder!" I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Zingerman's was a big part of my collegiate experience. Just I lived right down the street from it, and so in Carytown and
Carytown, yeah.
Yeah, Carytown is probably like my most singular, memory of Michigan. But yeah, that Carytown, and one time we did a thing called the Process Project, which was where we got to work with Gavin Creel. He came and he, I guess, was sort of workshopping this new show that he wrote, and just sort of didn't really want anybody else in the public to know that he was working on that. And so we ended up working on this material, and he found a way to weave in our very, very personal experiences into his work. And that was really cool, sort of it was just a great experience, and I'll never forget it. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Let's jump in. I want to say one thing. If anyone has questions, if something pops up in your mind that's kind of related to the topic we're talking about, feel free to use the chat. I have it up, so I'll try to notice that if there's anything in there. And we'll have time at the end too if you want to wait, but you're welcome to use the chat while we're going. So, so you guys both did, I believe, some regional theater between, like, while you're in school, and I know this wasn't the question I gave you, but between school and when you were able to join the Evan Hansen tour, can you talk a little bit about kind of what that experience is like? A lot of us here see shows at a lot of theaters in the DC area. They're, not big Kennedy Center shows. So talk about kind of that experience from more of a regional theater perspective.
There's a big thing just called summer stock for musical theater kids. There's a lot of like regional theaters that will pay actors to come out and do their shows, and stage managers and things like that from these programs. And so we're very lucky in Michigan that a lot of those regional theaters will come audition us at school. So we were able to audition for Connecticut Repertory Theater, Terrence Mann's theater, and do 1776 together. Sure. And we played North and South Carolina together, and we sat at like the same table. So when we graduated and did Evan Hansen together, it was just crazy for me, at least. It was like, oh, this is full circle. Like we were doing this non-act production somewhere every year, and then, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also about, in terms of regional theater, I can't speak to like all regional theater because summer stock is a little bit different because summer stock is sort of built for the collegiate level in a lot of ways. But it gives you an enormous respect for all the jobs that are going on, behind the scenes. And Evan Hansen is like, we live a very bougie lifestyle backstage at Evan Hansen because, everyone is there to support us and make sure that the only thing we have to focus on is our track and our work and the acting and all that stuff. But, in summer stock, it's a lot about you build and deconstruct the set a lot of the times, and you stay up till like 4 a.m. and then get up and go to rehearsal at like, 10 a.m. and then it can be intense, but it's wonderful and exciting. And
didn't you do Wagon Wheel too? Where you
have
to
Wagon
do
Wheel sort of more
the strike too? Yeah, exactly.
Wagon Wheel was where you would strike till like 4 a.m., eat pizza till like 5 a.m., and then go to sleep and go back to rehearsal at 10 a.m. And that was crazy, but it's so much fun. And also, I feel like now I have such an appreciation for what everybody's doing when we're just going to the next city and we're like, bye everybody, have fun taking down the set. It's hard. It was amazing. So. Yeah.
The organizational level of Evan Hansen is out of this world compared to those production. Like I did a production in Jacksonville, Florida, at this program called Apex Theater, and our director of Newsies dropped out halfway through our rehearsal period, and he asked me to do it. So I was playing Davey and directing the production as well with a bunch of like 13-year-olds. So that was a whirlwind.
It is a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Junior summer.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right. Before we jump into Evan Hansen, we had a question. Michael Bohr wants to know, what was the first Broadway musical that you saw?
Wicked was my.
That's great.
I don't remember it, to be honest with you. I was pretty young, and like the first one I remember is In the Heights. In the Heights was probably like the one that at least stuck with me pretty long term. Yeah.
The first show I saw was American Idiot.
Yes.
And then immediately following saw West Side Story, the 2007 version, which Lin-Manuel Miranda updated like half of the lyrics to Spanish, which was very interesting. I thought it was great.
So cool.
They're all excellent shows. Good.
Yes.
I will get to, Lisa has a question here. I will get to it in a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about the auditioning process for Dear Evan Hansen?
Sure. I mean, my experience was very unique.
Pretty different per person, yeah.
Yeah, everybody has a very weird, because I think everybody enters it at a different period in when they're casting. And so like it was my senior year of college, and it was right before spring break, and they had sent me, the head of my department had sent me an email, because they often go directly to the head of Michigan and stuff like of Michigan Musical Theater to essentially draft people and try to get them in for auditions and stuff, because we're young and they trust the program in a lot of ways, which is wonderful. But yeah, they had sent me an email to put a tape on for Evan for the tour, and I put it together over the course of spring break and made sure not to have too much fun during spring break, and so I could be focused on that. And I sent it in, and they emailed me back and said, "Will you come to New York in 2 days and do this for Pascal Paul, Greif, and everybody?" And and that's that was bizarre, because a lot of my friends had like 6-7 auditions for it, but I just happened to slide in at a time when they were sort of finishing up their round of casting. And I got in there and I did the stuff, and then I think it was like the next day or something, I got an email saying I got it. So it was over the course of 2
next
weeks.
day. You heard the next day.
It was I don't know if it was the next day. It was like the day after tomorrow, maybe. But like,
wow.
It was a really bizarre and wonderful thing. It's also my first New York audition, so it was like I was very intimidated, and and that was my sort of experience. I was an understudy for Evan, Jared, and Connor in the first year, and I got to go on a bunch, and it was amazing. And then I started playing Connor in the second year.
Had you seen the show, or did you know a lot about it when you auditioned?
Yes, I had. I had seen it, I think, 2 or 3 times. I actually had seen it in every iteration, I think. I saw it in DC, because I was home, and then I saw it at Second Stage, and I saw it on Broadway. And so it was cool to see the trajectory of it, and I obviously bawled my eyes out like everybody does when they go to see it. And it really moved me, and I think that I feel very lucky to be a part of it, because I think sometimes shows come into your life for a reason, and there was a lot of the subject matter that was super resonant with me, and I felt like it was extremely cathartic just in the last 2 years to get a lot of these feelings out. So
yeah.
Oh my God.
Matthew, what about you? What about your audition?
I sent
clearly not a 4-day turnaround for you.
Clearly not a 4-day turnaround. No. So I was asked to submit a tape similar to No before spring break, and I didn't hear anything for 2 months. We all graduated. We go to New York. We do our showcase. I got a manager, started having different meetings with people, and then out of the blue, Evan Hansen emailed me. He was like, "Hey, come in for an initial audition." I was like, "Great, cool." Then I did a work session about 2 weeks after that, which is where you go in with all of the material for understudying all 3 guys. So it's like 7 song cuts and like a bunch of scenes, and you're in there for like an hour and a half, and they're just giving you like all of these notes to bring into your final audition. And then I had my final audition, which was crazy because it was like pretty much my first major callback or anything like that. And there were, I remember, ring lights everywhere and HD cameras, and Michael Greif was there, and Alex Lackamore and Stacy, our producer, was in the back, and there were just like 18 people in the room, and I had only ever had like 2 or 3 before, so that was kind of crazy to say the least. But I didn't hear back for probably about 3 weeks, and then they told me that I got it.
Nice. And how does that work as far as like you're joining a tour that's ongoing, they're already doing shows? How does that work as far as like you getting in, you rehearsing? What's that process like? There
was a bit of a turnaround. There were about, I think, like 4 or 5 of us that were joining the company at the exact same time. An understudy who understudies both of the moms, a dad understudy for Larry, and a vacation swing for both of the women. And so we all rehearsed together with some of the Canadian cast that was joining, because the Toronto production closed of Dear Evan Hansen, and then a lot of them were rehired within the tour. So we rehearsed with them. That first 2 weeks basically was just us, all the new understudies, sitting behind a desk and watching the Canadian actors run the show with Michael giving them notes, and we were just like furiously writing down like all of the blocking and like all of the little things we were hearing, and just observing. And then we got to DC, where they were at the Kennedy Center for 8 weeks last summer, and we started rehearsing there, and that's when we finally started getting on stage and doing things like that.
Not a bad place to start, I have to say.
Oh no, it was, oh my God, the green room at the Kennedy Center is stunning too. There was so much room backstage, it was great compared to some of the other theaters that we eventually got to.
Good. And had you seen the show before did you have any interaction with it?
My brother got me tickets to see Ben Platt in the very last row of the balcony. And I just also remember bawling my eyes out and just loving the show so much. And just, it was such a dream. And I'm so thankful that I'm able to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Did you have a lot of interaction with any of besides, you mentioned the Toronto one, do you have any interaction with like the Broadway cast or anything like that? Or the other shows?
One of my friends, and Noah's as well, Josh Strobel, who's also a Michigan alum, he is in the Broadway company. He's an understudy for all three as well. So I would like go to the Broadway theater after our rehearsals and be like, hi Josh, like, and just hang out back there and like talk to the people about how the Broadway company is different than the tour production because their show is raked, which means the stage is raised a little bit in the back, so it makes it a little more complicated. But yeah, like a little.
Yeah, cool, interesting. And so you both either are currently or were, like you said, the understudy for all three roles. How hard is that to learn three completely different roles, totally different characters, and how do you keep that straight in your head when you're performing one or the other?
It's
very, very difficult. It's a very difficult thing because you really don't do it at school. So you kind of have to like dive in and learn it. Noah, I remember we were both in Ann Arbor that summer before you started the tour. And I remember you and Sydney Clark would like rehearse the lines of all three of the characters and like go back and do the scenes in different orders.
Yeah.
It's a lot of memorization right off the bat. You have to go in off book. I think both of us pretty much did that. And just you're prepared because then you have all the blocking and all the numbers on top of just the lines on top of that. But also, when you're backstage every night, just listening to the show, if you're not on stage that night, you kind of get a feel for like all of the lines. Like I'm pretty sure I could do almost any of the tracks at this point, just like line wise, because I've heard it so many times at this point.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of work at the beginning, but then eventually it's pretty easy to maintain.
Yeah. I feel the same. I mean, it was definitely like a lot of work at the beginning. It's a lot of different color highlighters, and like I find that like the nice thing about playing the three of those specific three characters is that I always say, I think exist physically in very different spaces, and like I work very physically, and so like I Evan obviously like has a lot of tension, but like not in the same way that Connor has tension, and Jared is more of a looser like persona because he's playing this sort of like faux cocky person, and yeah. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I feel like the rehearsals are really fun because a lot of times they'll be like, all right, you do this, you do that, and you just jump in.
The best is when they do Sincerely Me and you have to do all three roles. So they'll be like, all right, you switch to this role, you do that one. All right, let's do it again. Everyone switch. Hope that's good. And the harmonies are all different too. That was hardest for me. I don't know about you, but just the harmony tracks, you have to get everything so perfect, but we got there.
Yeah. But it's also cool because you don't get stuck in one sort of role too. You get to, express different parts of yourself and at different moments, sometimes, sporadically and stuff. So
have you accidentally done something as the wrong character?
I've sung the wrong harmony as a different character by accident for one note, and the music director did catch it and he caught me on that. But next show was perfect. So only once.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever switched characters. I definitely have a lot of like, on stage like horror stories and things like that from Evan Hansen that I've just like made mistakes or did something scary and the worst one was I skipped 3 pages of the script one time as Evan. I was in as Evan and I.
What scene?
It was just like it was like the opening scene with Jared or something. I said.
You told me about this. Yeah.
I essentially just said, I didn't remember what I said that I didn't remember what it was. I said, how was your summer? Which is a line that was 3 pages later. And then he responded just with what the line would be next after 3 pages later. And we never said anything in between. And it's okay because the story still made sense. So it was interesting. But that was one of the the scary moments. And I
had one of those as Jared in New Orleans. The Jared scenes are mostly through video chat or like text chat. So you're looking out at the lights in the audience and you have no other person to play off of and to help you if you get lost. And I walked out from one of the Jared entrances and said the completely wrong line for one of the scenes, like to start. And the Evan, who was David Jeffrey at the time, said the next line in that scene. And then we like kind of fumbled our way, but we finally found it. So we recovered. But things happen.
Yeah. Any other stories you want to share? Embarrassing?
I got a good.
You or other cast members?
I got so many. I have so many.
A lot. I got the one that I generally tell is that I was in Charlotte, and I don't remember what the reason was, but for whatever reason, 5 minutes before the show, the guy who was playing Evan that night called out, and I was the only one backstage covering that track at the time who could do it. And so I was just great because I was happy to play Evan, but at the same time it was 5 minutes. I wasn't warmed up, and you have to wear a real cast. So we put it on like you put on a real cast, and
it takes like 15 minutes to set, so you have to like sit there while it gets ready.
But we didn't do that, and so I went on stage, and it was dripping on the computer when I started the first scene, and it was like so scary because I didn't, I was already like flustered and like not warmed up in this dripping cast, and I was like, this is gonna be the worst show of my life, and like, but it wasn't, and it ended up being really fun. So
yeah. I think it's really funny when people's shoes fall off on stage, because we have a lot of tracking with like our discs that bring on set pieces, and there's a big the act 1 finale is You Will Be Found, and I think it was Sierra, the woman playing Alana at the time, and she lost her boot, and just she had to like put it back on as she was singing and moving while all the lights were happening, so she couldn't really see it. So she was like on the floor, like reaching for it, and we were backstage watching, and I just remember laughing for a long time for that one.
Oh my God. Terrifying. So as I mentioned earlier, Noah, you jumped in when we saw you in the Kennedy Center in the middle of the show. We were all kind of looked at each other and we were like, that's a different person. That was the guy that started the show. Can you talk about kind of how that was, and have you like how you get into that so quickly when you're not expecting to be in the show that night?
Totally. I would like to say that I have a totally valid system of how I do that. I've never, ever done that ever in my life. That was the first time I've ever had to go on in the middle of a show before. And it was very scary. I often actually block it out of my brain because it's so scary. It was good because Connor at least is like a smaller in terms of size track. It's like I think it's like 20 minutes total, and Merrick, who's wonderful, had done the bulk of the scene work already, and so I think I came on and like disappear or something. So I sort of didn't have to do the heavier lifting, which is like in the lab scene and the Sincerely Me and stuff. Disappear is just kind of a good time. Like Disappear is fun. And a bop and. So hopping in, but for the same exact reason, hopping in the middle with that track is very weird because the audience never really gets to know your version of it, because if you're only on 20 minutes and somebody's already done 10 or 12 of them, it's kind of weird. Versus I think with Evan, if you were to hop in at Act 2 or something, we would have some time to get to know you and how you do the character and everything. So that was a very strange day. And but it was a cool thing to add to my list of experiences as an actor. So yeah,
as a Michigan alum, we were excited that we got to see you in it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I was glad that I got. It was very ironic.
Silver lining.
Yes, totally.
Do you guys have a favorite role of the three? Obviously, they're very different. Do you have a favorite, or does it just kind of depend on your mood for the day, or if you could pick one? Well, I guess you kind of picked one, but is there one that you like to play more than others for any variety of reasons?
I think they all have their individual reasons because they're all so different. It's so hard to answer like a favorite, because my favorite I think is Connor, just because you get to go out and have so many great features and solos and have a great time and have like really heavy scenes and really meaningful scenes. And then you're basically done. It's like really, really easy. Or at least compared to like Evan of like lifting that show for like 2.5 hours of like barely any breaks. It just, the toll it was taking on my body to do that compared to the other roles is exhausting. But you feel it's like the adrenaline rush is so much more. So I think I would pick Evan because there's just nothing else like doing that. But
yeah, I think
they all have their moments. Yeah.
I would pick Evan too, just because I've had the experience, and like I obviously love Connor very dearly, and I've gotten to do lots of stuff. But there is truly nothing like playing Evan Hansen. It is the coolest experience. It is an extremely cathartic experience to tap into all those different emotions and feelings, and there's not a lot of roles for people at least like at our age to go in front of like a giant audience and be on stage for 2 hours straight. It's amazing to be able to like live in the world genuinely. Like you don't have to go off stage and sort of like get caught up in what's going on in the back.
You don't have time. You just are on stage. You're on the train.
Which is really
I'm gonna ask a question. What is your favorite scene or song to do as Evan though? That's
my next question.
That was your next question?
I was like, I'm curious because I haven't asked Noah this.
Favorite scene or song to do? I think probably it's between For Forever and, well, I don't know. It's probably the ones you're thinking of. It's between Waving for Forever and Words Fail. It's those three are probably. Waving is one of those that like it depends on how you're feeling that day. If you're vocally feeling in it, it's going to be a lot of fun. But if you're not vocally in it,
it's going to be a journey and a half.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of work. And but For Forever is one I've always felt like you could just sort of sink into and tell the story because the lyrics are written so beautifully. But then
you really
Words Fail is just so cool because you get to release all of that and
especially part two and Evan alone when you like go down stage and that blue light. Oh yes.
Super cool. What's yours?
My favorite scene is the orchard, which I think is an unpopular opinion. It's the last scene in the show. It's like after a year of time passes and this magnificent wall lifts and the blue light just hits the audience. And I cry every time I watch that scene. I cry every time I do that scene. It's very cathartic, I feel like is a great word for it. But yes, For Forever is the best one to sing. It's just so much fun.
It's so good.
Yeah.
We had a question. Emma wants to know, where has been your favorite place to perform on tour? Excluding the Kennedy Center for the Alumni Association.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Kennedy Center is great. That theater's amazing.
Not even, I mean, that's not fair.
I have very limited, because I just joined, so I've only been with the tour for like 7 months-ish. But I think my favorite place to go on was San Diego, to be honest. That was like a great time because it was January 1st, like for the first 2 weeks. So we performed at the Hotel Del for New Year's Eve after a show. And like we did like a little You Will Be Found number. It was really fun, and then just hung out on the beach. But I performed like the second week there, I think, as Jared or something. But it was great.
Yeah. My debut as Evan was in LA, and that was like probably probably my favorite, just because it was very special to me, like location, because of the situation, and like we got to meet a lot of really cool people. Like would come backstage, we got to meet Tom Hanks and Katy Perry and like all these crazy people, and it was so that one's probably my favorite in terms of like geographically, but in terms of just like the design of the theaters, because I'm definitely a geek about that. Maybe like Boston or something. The Boston Opera House is a really beautiful theater.
St. Louis, the Fabulous Fox, too. That theater is done. That was where I made my tour debut. That was really cool.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
As Jared, we had we were in rehearsal, and I was rehearsing as Evan that day, and then they stopped us halfway through, and Adam Quinn, our associate director, was like, Matt, you're going on tonight, so you're going to start rehearsing as Jared. And I was like, oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
And when you guys are understudying, do you have to, particularly like the tour, are you there just backstage every night?
You have to be there every night. Yes, exactly. We have a lot of, we don't have that many show call outs, but it's just like before, like every Tuesday at a new city, we do sound checks. So sometimes people aren't feeling it because it's the travel day. And so you just have to be there every night just in case something goes wrong. We're usually there.
Oh, go.
We either spend the time rehearsing, watching the show, trailing backstage. So like if I was trailing Evan, you like watch Evan in the wing and then you follow him with his quick change and you walk it with him as practice. That's really fun. Or we play a lot of Catan too in our free time.
Yes.
Nice.
For sure.
Nice. Emma asked, what scene do you think is the hardest to perform for each track?
Oh,
Scene. Scene for each. I think for Jared, I would say it's that first one. That first one is weird.
The school scene, really?
Yeah, everybody I've ever talked to for some reason, I think it's
I love
because
standing
it, like,
behind the TV.
you like that. I for some reason like find that harder because I think like when you make an entrance sometimes and you're like going somewhere, like it's a little bit easier to start a scene. But with that particular school scene with Jared at the very beginning,
walking to Evan. Yep.
You're standing behind a TV for like, like 5 straight minutes, and then you're just sort of like, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm in a hallway. And I think it's hard. And I also think it's hard because like that is the scene where you establish who Jared is, and like you have to hit some jokes, you got to hit some things. But yeah, I would say that one for Jared. I'd say for Connor, probably the hardest to, I guess. No, oh, sorry. Easy. Lab scene. Lab scene is the hardest.
Lab scene is the hardest for Connor.
Yeah.
For me, Jared is one of the middle of Act 1 scenes. There's a quick transition with Alana that I, during my put-in, ran into a screen because the lights are very blinding sometimes, and you have to get used to where your exits and entrances are. And there's a really quick like blackout. Jared runs off stage, and Alana runs forward and then lights up, and it's like a little comedic timing thing. So you have to get it pretty perfect. But during my put-in, I like ran into a screen. So that is the worst for me. I'm always so terrified.
Yeah, and then Evan.
Hardest for Evan. I feel like, I mean, probably pre-Good For You for a lot of people, like the fight with Heidi. I would say that's so? Or Heidi at the Heidi at the movies. I just have fun because you just listen to the whole scene. But the hardest to do specific wise is For Forever. I think the scene, because every head look is so specific. Like every little look during there's you're at the dinner table with the Murphys. And I remember Michael telling us like every single time you had to look at each person and you had to make sure that was perfect. So that was difficult for me.
Yeah, I think the chat scenes are weirdly the hardest. I think like I feel for Jared just because Jared has to like anytime you're just like looking out into the abyss of an audience, especially when you're on tour and you're switching venues so much, like your focal point doesn't really have. It's not consistent, so it's
changes every week. Yeah,
hard to sometimes create that reality for yourself. Like, okay, I'm gonna look at the poll and that's Jared. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, no.
Yeah. Great question. We're gonna transition a little bit. It's related, but how did you guys hear the news about the postponement of the tour? And have you heard anything since? Probably not. But.
Well, we were in rehearsal. All the understudies were in rehearsal the day in March when Broadway was closed in the morning. That was before rehearsal began. And our associate director was not with us, but he was still directing the rehearsal. So he was set up on iPads all around the audience of the theater, which was a little funny. And we had rehearsal, but we kept having to have breaks because they would go into conference calls with like all of Broadway League and our producers and things like that, trying to figure out what was going to happen. And I think most tours closed that night, but a couple stayed open because of like the states that didn't close venues. Like Wicked, I know, did their show, but it was because we were in Salt Lake City and they closed. They were like, no large gatherings are happening anymore. Yeah. So that was why our tour shut down that night. But our producer was very vocal with us for those like 3 days. We were on constant group phone calls. I felt very like comforted and like, in control. Like she was in a lot of control of what was going on, like our flights home and things like that. It was very nice. And
it was efficient.
Not nice, but efficient is great.
Yeah, it was very efficient. And I mean, it was definitely like, and it was interesting because it came at in the middle of a 16 show week, we like to call it, where we do 8 shows a week. And the last time we didn't have a break. And so we were, I think this was like show 12 or something of 16. And so in that way, I was like, oh, great. We don't have to do the show tonight. I'm really tired. But at the same time, and it was funny because I even feel like probably a lot of people feel this way. At the beginning of quarantine, I was obviously devastated that I couldn't do the thing that I love to do and like, have this wonderful message being shared every night on stage. But I also was like, I'm excited to take a little breather for a second, and this is going to be really lovely. I think that my impression was that it was going to be like a month breather or something even less, and then now that it's realized it's like a year breather, I think that is still valuable, but it's definitely a different thing than I was anticipating and
prepared for.
I've come with a lot of feelings about missing the show and missing what we do.
You and I were in very different spots when that first happened. I had 4 Evan performances coming up that
Oh,
weekend and
yeah.
next weekend, and that was pretty sad. So I was just devastated at the beginning, but then I too was like, oh, it'll only be for a month, so we'll be back.
Exactly.
Here we are.
Have you been in contact with your cast members a lot while you've been at home?
We've had a couple Zoom calls with our whole cast. We have like a cast group chat, so we talk in that sometimes too.
Well, we talk. We don't talk to Matt. We just leave Matt out of the chats. I'm just kidding.
Oh my god. I'm invited sometimes. No, we've been in contact with them. I don't know. That our producers talk to us a bunch about, like, they keep giving us updates about like when it gets pushed back, and like I think the last thing we heard was like January or later or something like that, because that's when Broadway is postponed to. It'll probably be later, because I don't really see how you would do it without a vaccine in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, that is, yeah, I have no
The conundrum currently. Yeah.
And what have you guys been doing? I kind of know the answer. What have you guys been doing over the last 4 months, creatively, or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Noah, picnic, please tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm doing well. So I'm a composer, lyricist, playwright, and such, and I like to.
He's brilliant.
Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate it. But I like writing musicals, and but right now, I think with everything going on, I feel very there's just a lot going on in the world, and like I think some people take that as I'm going to mobilize and make the best play or musical of all time, and it's going to be so serious. And the way that I'm reacting to that is I think I kind of, when I'm working creatively, want to get away from that space, at least right now, until I think eventually I'll process all that's going on in the world and want to share that in a story in some capacity. But right now, being in the middle
Not
of
right now.
I'm just wanting to, I have this desire to do something just purely silly and creative and fun. And so I started this thing called Picnic that I'm going to start on Friday, where it's an improv musical series. And I create a bunch of tracks beforehand, and then every week I bring on a guest on the show, and we improv a musical on the spot, essentially, where we create the story, the script, the lyrics, all that stuff. And they're about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And it's just something to stay busy. It keeps me making music. It keeps me staying active as a storyteller, and it keeps me having fun with my friends on Zoom. So that's what I've been working on.
And this is going to be for public consumption?
Yeah, this will be on YouTube. I can't say that you'll enjoy it. I don't know that that it's actually, of any value at the moment, but it's really, it'll be on YouTube, and if you want to watch it, you're welcome to. It's more for my own, sanity.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything you're doing?
I took a different route. I was like, let me take a little bit of a break from theater. I wrote a cookbook in high school. That was like my claim to fame. I sold it in rich neighborhoods, door to door, to fund my exchange trip to stay with a host family in Italy. And they lived above a bakery and operated it. And so we'd wake up like 4 a.m. and like, I haven't been baking a lot on tour, and in college I hadn't been a lot. So when I got back home to like my KitchenAid and my parents' like newly renovated kitchen, I've been making sourdough starter and just like baking all the time. And I baked my way already. I thought it was going to take a lot longer. My way through my favorite dessert person, Christina Tosi, who created Milk Bar in New York City. I baked my way through her cookbook, which was really fun. But now I'm starting a YouTube channel called Munchies with Matt, which is
so cool.
being shot like tasty videos from the aerial, and then I'm adding in my own silly commentary on top of it. So that's eventually going to happen when I decide to edit the footage.
That's awesome.
And I got a pet gecko. Much needed.
That is great. Anything else you guys are doing besides those?
I would just briefly to touch. I also been working on a musical about Shel Silverstein for the last 5 years. It's a
so
musical.
So good.
Matt's just like my cheerleader today. He's really
he did a production of it at Michigan, and it was incredible.
Thanks, Matt. And it's a show. It's in verse. I've been trying for years to sort of move it to its next stage, but it's also going to largely depend on the estate and what goes on there. And so we'll see as that evolves what will happen. But it's also a big passion of mine, and that's it. That's the pitch.
I saw a question that said, "What was my gecko's name?" And his name is Hermes. And he's absolutely adorable. Okay.
That's awesome. Okay. So we're gonna change things a little bit. What is your, you can name more than one if you have a couple, dream role to play, assuming no restrictions on gender, race, age, anything, like anything. What would you want to do?
Ooh, okay. Well, if there's no restriction, can I have two? One that's like gender bent and one that's not gender bent. Scorpius Malfoy in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I want to do that ASAP. I saw that show and was blown away with the magic that they can do on stage. It was so much fun. And in like when I'm 50, I would love to play Mama Rose.
Yes.
Gypsy. I think I would have a great time. I think the audience would have a great time. I feel like that would just be it. Noah?
When I'm older, want to play George in Something in the Park because I love that show. Something in the Park with George is just a beautiful score, and I don't know that I have a gender bent role that comes to mind immediately. I mean, I know I want to be in Fun Home in some capacity one day. I love all the roles in that. I mean, all the female roles and all the male roles are great. But
this is so random, but I would love to see you as the reporter in Come From Away.
I've never seen Come From Away.
It's so good.
Yeah,
it came to the Ford Theater here in DC before it went to Broadway.
Oh,
it's
cool.
It's a great show.
They're also
it's
making
really,
it a
really
movie or something in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know when the timing is. I think they're making a movie. It's a great show.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see that.
Alana agrees with me. It's so good.
Oh.
Lisa asked, do you chat with other Michigan alum who are on Broadway or in theater to learn from one another and share experiences?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, always.
Yep.
I mean, a lot with Hamilton people. I mean, a lot of my like whole class
it's all in Hamilton. Literally all of them. Yes.
Which is really cool. And it's nice because I love that show so much. And so it was really fun. I got to go see a couple of them in the show in San Francisco. And it was just like, my friend Simon, who's in my class, plays Lafayette, or played Lafayette in San Francisco. And yeah, it was fun. It's fun to share stories and talk about, the different hurdles and different, privileges of being able to be on stage every night and doing the gig and stuff. And yeah, we talk.
Yeah. Justin, my class member, just joined Hamilton as well. But I was thinking about Mackenzie Kurtz, who was Anna in Frozen on Broadway, and then Frozen tragically closed. So she only got to do it for like 2 weeks. But like my mom went, and like my whole class was there when she debuted. So jealous, but
I'm jealous. I wish I could have seen that.
Amazing. Yeah.
Do you ever use Michigan as like an in if you're like around, like some of the bigger Michigan alum names? Like you mentioned Gavin Krill, but some of the other ones. Are you ever in a space and you're like, oh, I went to Michigan too, and use that as like your shared experience?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't think I would be in the position that I'm currently in with all
without Michigan.
My life without Michigan. I wouldn't. It's just wouldn't happen.
100%.
Yeah. I'm sure they go right to the top of Fairfax Hall. Yeah, I mean, you just have to, right?
For sure.
Emma wants to know, how do you feel about the Hamill film?
I love it. I loved it. Did you not like it, Matt? Because I think you had a different opinion, right?
No. I had never seen Hamilton in person. And so one of like my favorite seat in the house of a theater is front row mezzanine or front row balcony. So you get like a full picture. I loved the Hamilton film. I thought it was great. I'm so happy it's online. I hope the actors are getting money for it. And all of the people in the credits that are like 8 minutes long, I hope they all got something for that. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. I just missed a lot of it, of like the live theater aspect of like not watching maybe the main story, but like the people in the background. What are they like? I love that aspect of theater, of this like taking a moment and like looking elsewhere on the stage and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in Hamilton too. Like, yeah, I've seen it 5 times in person, and it would have been 6 in June. And so there's so much in the background happening that it's every time I go, I try to like focus on
see something different. Yeah,
there's just so much happening in the ensemble, particularly in the background. And then the film really it's so close up, which is fun because you get to really see the faces and the emotions and stuff that you can't see from seats. So
absolutely. And I think it's great because it sparked a lot of debate, particularly within my class, about the last moment when Eliza gasps and what that gasp entails. That's been really fun to talk about.
Yeah.
There's no right answer. That's the best.
There's no
part.
right answer. No, there's no
That's-
right answer. She could be seeing Philip. She could be seeing Hamilton in Heaven. She could be breaking the fourth wall and seeing the audience. I think there's so many great choices. I love it.
Who does it for you, you know?
Her gas in that movie is real good.
It is good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
she's
think
great.
that's the best one I've seen.
I was like so struck after watching it though. I was like, how did she not win the Tony? I like looked it up and said, oh, Cynthia Erivo. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Great. Yep.
She's the only one, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also great. All Color Purple too. That was such a good show.
Incredible. She's so good.
So many questions. Okay. Joey asked, at what age did you start performing, and do you have advice for young actors?
Read as many plays as you can.
Yep.
Just expose yourself to as many different forms of theater as you can. Knowledge is power, and never try to be someone else. Own who you are individually. Those are my sound bites. Noah.
I would say, like, yeah, I mean, those two sound bites are like probably the most important, and even though they're so simple, I mean, especially the second one, like, I think every day I'm still trying to figure out who I am. You know what I mean? And like, and every day that you get a little bit closer, you get better as a performer because you have new facets of yourself that you discover and to bring to characters. And so it's just a lot of I think also like good advice for being an actor, and I don't know that everybody feels this way, but is, you know, being aware that it's a lot of self-reflection and still and that it's a lot of navigating you as a product in the industry, but also being able to still make time to, it's always about the other person, right? It's always about giving, even though it's such a focus, so much of the focus of what you're doing is looking into yourself.
Internal.
Internal. But like, yeah, to always give to your scene partner, give, you know, look outside of yourself. I think that's always important.
Absolutely.
Paul wants to know, what's your favorite show that you really liked, either performing or watching, that was a flop?
Ooh, great question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't have a response yet. Oh, yeah, I might need a second.
That was a flop. Well, I mean, was it a flop to me or was it a flop to the rest of the world?
Broadway? Was it like a financial, like a not a financial success on Broadway, or like?
I would, yeah, a flop to the world.
A flop to the world.
A flop to the
That's how I'm
world.
interpreting that.
And wait, do you remember? Wait, the question was what was before the? Sorry, what was the context?
What's your favorite show that you really liked, either performing or watching, that was a flop to the rest of the world?
I'm going to call this a flop because it never transferred to Broadway. It was successful off Broadway, but I'm going to call that a flop even though it was great. Octet by Dave Malloy off Broadway. Saw that, blew my mind. An a cappella musical with 8 people in it about like a group therapy session. It was 90 minutes long and I left changed. Wow. Had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I have one. I mean, I don't think I.
Merrily We Roll Along is great. I think that's a Sondheim's basic answer because it was a horrible flop, but like that's pretty good.
Merrily
right?
Roll, I love Merrily We Roll Along. So that I don't think I've ever seen it though. I've never seen it.
Oh, because you weren't there when we did it. That was the year after.
Yeah.
When is Newsies coming back? At least I would love to know.
Alana wants to know, what are your top 5 shows?
Top 5 shows. Sunday in the Park, Fun Home. I'll put Evan Hansen in there just in case that my producer watches this.
Love you, Stacy.
Love you, Stace. Probably a Sondheim show of some capacity. I mean, another Sondheim show, probably like Company or something. I really love Company. And I don't know, maybe here, think of some, Matt. I'm gonna look at my
Okay. Great. I'm gonna pick Dear Evan Hansen.
There you go.
I'm gonna pick A Little Night Music.
Mm.
I think it's beautiful. Gypsy.
Mm.
Guilty pleasure is She Loves Me, and like the guiltiest of guilty pleasure is Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde.
Because I don't know someone who didn't listen to like Legally Blonde remix and cry in their car when they were 13, because I definitely did.
We saw that as a Michigan event at Keegan here, and there was I'm blanking on her name, but it was a Michigan alum who played the main role.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we go wherever you guys are. We seem to find you. Yeah.
Everywhere in the theater community.
The first thing I do on a playbill, right?
Yes. Always.
Oh my God, actually, I'm adding Man of La Mancha. I'm so sorry. Man of La Mancha is incredible. It was a flop, but it's such a good musical. And I actually saw it for the first time in DC with Amber Amon playing Dulcinea, and it was so good.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Well, yeah, correct.
Yes, Mean Girls. Yeah. Those
Yes,
like
Mean Girls. Yeah.
It's a great show. I listen to it all the time. This is kind of a similar related question. If there was, we talked about Hamilton being online now, if there was another show or two that with the original cast from any time that you could stream and watch just on repeat, is there any couple shows that you would just love to see that you weren't able to see or were?
The 1997 production of Carousel with Audra McDonald. So specific, but I would just love to see her do that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I would just say Fun Home. I know that that's
did you see it on Broadway?
I saw the tour, so I never saw it when it was actually.
Oh, you didn't see it in the round. Oh,
No.
I had standing room. I didn't even have a ticket for that show. It was incredible.
Yeah, it really. There's something about the way that I'm also just like a big composition geek, and so it's like I just love Janita's story. And the way she tells stories. Yep. I think she doesn't use any like chord progression. She really follows where the character is going with her hands on the piano, and it's just thrilling. So I would probably. I mean, it's nice that we have Shrek the Musical on Netflix, but I would also like the Fun Home production.
Yeah.
I like Shrek. I watched it. I mean,
I love Shrek.
No, Shrek is a great time. Shrek is a great time. Yeah.
It's one and done. I don't know if I put it on repeat, but it's a good show. All right. Anyone else have any other questions? You're welcome to either put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself if you would like to talk to them directly, if you have anything to say to them. Be nice. I'm sure you would be. Anything else? Any other questions you guys want to ask? We can kind of hitting our time anyway, but if anyone wants to know anything else you guys want to plug or ask each other while you're put each other on the spot? Want to know?
Oh, you mean us too?
Yeah. Noah, favorite non-SMTD class that you took at Michigan?
Favorite non-SMTD class I took at Michigan? Either I took it was like an entrepreneurial course where you had to create your own product over the course of the semester, and you had to like sell it on campus and all this stuff, and you had to just like invent something. And I mean, I really tanked, but I didn't take the class. I just like my product did not like do incredibly well at the University of Michigan. It was like a meditation room or something. So in one of the library buildings for people like when they were studying to go and like find peace.
Meditate, yeah.
And it was actually a really cool idea, and it was a cool, interesting class about marketing a product and stuff, and I think was really useful in the context of both as an actor and as a composer and stuff. It was
absolutely.
But also just like creative writing in general. I had some really good creative writing teachers there. What about you?
Definitely. Poetry course as well, but history of witchcraft comes to mind. It was like a 600-person lecture, and the professor found out that we were MTs, musical theater majors, and she was like, can you guys perform a little something from like The Crucible maybe, because we were supposed to read it in class. So we snuck into the building and rehearsed at like midnight, and the janitor found us screaming and doing like the jury scene where all the kids are like screaming, and then we did it for like our 600-person lecture, and I will never forget it. It was so fun.
Oh, another memory comes to mind. It was I was in a class about the 60s. It was all about the 60s and the rights movement.
Took that.
And you took that?
I mean, it was like American culture class, I think.
Yeah, AM cult. Yes,
it changed my life. I like all I do now. Anytime
those are my favorite courses.
Books on the 60s. It's like it literally changed my life.
No, it was amazing. And we, I think it was like me and my friend had missed a lecture at one point, and our teacher wrote to us giving us the information that we missed, but also said that they were going to retract credit. And so what we ended up doing was we wrote like a whole thing like Hamilton, summarizing the history that we had received, and he said, if you do this for the class, I'll give you the points that you missed for the lecture. And we did it, and we got the points.
That's awesome.
And it was so cool, and it was just fun. I like applying what we do creatively, because like we don't all, I feel like in our particular field, think the same as like other people think. And like, I like when we're given opportunities in education, which I did feel like a lot of times happened at Michigan, to use like our skill sets to, retain the information productively. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Lisa wants to know, what bar and restaurant do you miss most in Ann Arbor?
Great question.
I miss Jolly
Those
Pumpkin.
Are two. Jolly Pumpkin.
I like Jolly Pumpkin. I like Jolly Pumpkin. I like Zingerman's. Zingerman's probably the best for me.
I worked at Aventura for like 2 years. I really do miss it. It was a lot of fun.
Have you guys been back to campus since you graduated?
No, but I really want to go visit as soon as Miss COVID calms down.
Yeah, I want to go too. I'll join you, Matt, because I think I've been.
Let's make a little road trip. You can pick me up on the way, and we'll go over.
It's only 8 hours from here.
Yeah.
I did the drive on Saturday. It's fine.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was in Michigan the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh,
awesome. Did you go to the Arb at all?
The Arb.
That is one thing I miss a lot, is the Arboretum. I used to go and write all the time. Yeah.
Sure.
Stunning.
And the summers there too. Sometimes we would stay the summers, and we would
I stayed for 2 out of the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
float down the river. Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Any other questions?
This isn't a question, it's a comment. But Matthew, I graduated in 2018, so I saw you as Flounder in The Little Mermaid, and I love the show. You and the rest of the cast were great.
Thank you. Yay. Oh my God, I loved that show. It was like so low budget, but we had a great time.
I could not tell it was low budget. I thought it was great.
Oh, perfect. Oh, awesome. Thank you.
That's amazing. Are there videos and stuff of all of your shows? I feel like
there is like a database with all of our shows. I don't know if it's like public access or just the people that go through the program, but there is a database, so it does exist.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't.
Our showcases are on there too. Like everything's on there. Yeah.
Send me that when we finish.
I'll send you.
Alana wants to know if you have thoughts on Star Kid in a Harry Potter musical.
To be honest, I don't know. I haven't seen them. I know they came out of Michigan. Yeah. I think like maybe out of 24-hour theater or something.
Yeah, it was. They had their own it was like they were like Musket, I think. Star Kid. I didn't know they had their own program that they.
It was mostly like theater majors too, or so I thought, because Darren was a theater major as well. But great works of art, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
I just had another question I just brought up. So you guys are both obviously, I believe in the musical theater program, but are you interested at all, or is there in doing like a straight play?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And is there anything you'd love to do?
Torch Song Trilogy.
Angels in America.
Right.
Really bad.
Who do you want to play in Angels in America? Because I would love to play Pryor. Oh, okay, great.
We're gonna do it together.
Let's do some scenes.
And just do it on YouTube and show. I mean, you guys online now anyway, right? You can do whatever you want.
Correct.
I mean, I think with our track record, we probably will end up in the show together, because we've now had 2 other shows.
We probably will do that eventually, and I can't wait for that day.
Well, if you come to DC, we'll be there.
Honestly, yeah, there's some great theaters in DC. The Signature is amazing.
Which is great.
Yeah, saw some good shows there. Anything else anyone has?
Just a quick comment. When you brought up that question about seeing a show with the original cast, I'm a little older, so I go back further. But you really would get a lot from seeing Camelot. It had a
absolutely
marvelous all-star cast of Richard Burton, Robert Goulet, Julie Andrews, and Roddy McDowell. You don't get much better than that.
That's amazing.
No, Julie Andrews in her heyday? No, absolutely not. You can't beat that.
Oh, I wish I could see it.
Our opera department, my senior year, did Camelot, or like a version of Camelot, I believe. Something like that. I remember watching it. So
that's cool.
Anyone?
Kind of an unrelated question, but what have you guys been doing during quarantine that's just like your favorite thing to do that you didn't get to do while you were on tour?
I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles. I probably could have done that on tour.
Yes. We definitely did do a lot of puzzles backstage on tour. Yeah. That's very funny.
I do a lot of puzzles with my mom. I really enjoy spending time with my mom. I think that the really good thing about the quarantine has been that it forces me to stop thinking about like work, and like what am I going to do next, and where am I going to go next, and how am I going to further my career, and just allows me to just appreciate my family in new ways. And I really think that has been we do movie nights, and we alternate who cooks dinner night to night, and that's really nice. And so what about you?
I was gonna say cooking dinner, but I think I did a lot of that on tour as well, in Airbnbs. But I bike riding, honestly. I didn't have my bike on tour, and today I went for like 20 miles, and I can't feel my legs anymore, but it's so nice for me to get out and like do something every day.
I've been playing basketball a lot. Weirdly, I'm not athletic. I'm not. I really like. I was just funny. No, but I watched, this is what happens when you're an actor, I think. I watched The Last Dance, and all of a sudden I was like, I have to be an NBA player. I have to go out there and try my best. And I go out there all the time, and I just shoot around, and it's a good
That's awesome.
time and exercise. But
Yes.
That's good.
Mm. Oh, and bake bread like every day. Sourdough loaves coming out of the oven constantly. My parents had me stop. They were like, this is too much, too many desserts.
Fair.
Would either or both of you be willing to sing something for us?
I can't today because it's honestly just like it's just been a long week, and normally I totally would. It's just I don't know that you would want to hear anything today.
I don't know if you would want to hear it is
Yeah.
the thing. I don't know if you would want to hear it.
But yeah, maybe next time if we ever do this again, I would love to prep in advance and actually really make sure I sound good for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a way. You could listen to them sing on social media. So do you guys want to share where people can find you all over the internet? Keep up with you and what you're doing during quarantine?
Noah?
My Instagram is NB Kieserman, which is my initials, and then Facebook and YouTube, and that's pretty much my social media world.
My Instagram is Matthew the Ginger, pretty easy to remember. And my YouTube channel coming up will be Munchies with Matt. So, 2 little spots.